Hey, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory and welcome to my pain cave. I'm in the Strength Factory shipping container where I do all my filming these days, and I am doing a follow along 1 hour aerobic training session. So grab your bib shorts, hop on your bike, and I'm going to take you for a little ride. We're going to talk about how to do aerobic training properly, maybe keep you entertained, talk a bit of science, show you some GoPros, and by the end of it, you should be that little bit fitter. Happy days.
First things first, we're going to get set up, get nice and comfy, make sure you got your drink, you got your training set up, you got your fan. I don't have one today because it's too noisy, plus it's about 3 degrees in the shipping container where I'm filming, and we're going to ease into the workout. I'm just going to start my workout. So there's loads of different products out there for doing these sort of things on. I'm on a Watt Bike Atom, which I'm not sponsored by. I bought it my own money, second hand. And so whatever you're using, let's just get set up. And the first thing to understand is the difference between just adjusting resistance and using what's called erg mode. And I would suggest that nearly all the time for aerobic training like this, you just want to use the manual resistance so that you can spin at a comfortable level at the right intensity, okay? And we're going to do it by feel and heart rate rather than using power, okay? So in erg mode or ergo mode, that would be where you set a certain wattage on the bike, and then the bike will hold you at those watts. So if you're at a low cadence, it's going to crank up the resistance. If you're at high cadence, it's going to crank it down to hold you at that set wattage. But the thing is that those watts, exactly what you push out each day is going to vary, okay? With the aerobic work, it's really about the effort going into the system, i.e. my heart rate, rather than the work coming out of the system, which is the watts. So we're going to use resistance. Now, what we're going to do today is hopefully just keep you entertained, keep you amused, so that you can get a really effective, maybe 45 minutes to an hour's aerobic training done at home, okay? Or even at the gym on a bike there. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build gradually. So I've got a heart rate monitor on at the moment, and it's currently saying I'm at 84 beats per minute, and I know that I want to be working up to about 135, 136 beats per minute is where I want to be working. But there's no hurry to get there, especially now I'm older. It takes a bit longer to build the heart rate up, okay? And so I'm going to give myself a good, good 5, maybe as long as 10 minutes to build my heart rate up to that level, okay? And you can see as well, I've started off with a jumper on because it's freezing in here. And whilst I'd normally stay on a ride, start cold, start cold, I just want to make this as comfortable as possible, okay? So, I'm 2.5 minutes in, I'm feeling comfortable, heart rate's creeping up a little bit. I'm going to go for a bit more resistance, and we're going to nudge the heart rate up gradually. Now, what we want to do now is let's have a talk about the intensity that we're looking to do as part of an aerobic training session. Now, if you have set heart rate training zones, so remember I've got my strap on here, we're probably looking in most training zones at zone 2, okay? And that is often called the aerobic zone or the endurance zone. And at that intensity, like I am now, you should be able to talk easily, okay? So if I was here, if I was on the ride with a mate, I could have a chat. I'm chatting to you, happy days. If I'm having to break up my sentences like this, I'm going too fast, okay? Now, the other way to gauge the intensity is using what's called the RPE scale, and that is the rate of perceived exertion, RPE. So that basically means how hard you think you're working out of 10 where 10, excuse me, is absolutely max effort. You're going for it, your heart rate is hitting max, okay, and 1 is sitting on the sofa. And what we want to do is build up to about 3 or 4 out of 10, which is easy. That's the whole point. It's low intensity training, and we'll talk about how that works in a minute. It's got to be low intensity. If you think you're riding about 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, and it's getting a bit harder, you're going too hard, and quite simply, you won't get the adaptations that we're looking for from this training. So 3 or 4 out of 10 is meant to be easy. And when you're first starting, you know, especially if you're a beginner, err on the side of easier, and then you can always build it up through the session and week to week. So as I'm talking to you, my heart rate's just nudged over 100. Okay, I'm just starting to get a bit warmer, and I'm 5 minutes in. So I do need a bit more resistance. I've been distracted talking to you. We just need to get the heart rate up a bit to start work. So the other thing we can do is think about breathing, and in particular nasal breathing, which I am not doing at the moment because I'm chatting away. Excuse me. But if you're on your own, you need to be focusing on mouth closed nasal breathing, like this. Simple. You're watching thinking, he's not doing anything. And that's good. That's how you want it. If you're breathing like this, you're going too hard. If your shoulders are lifting loads, that probably means you're just breathing into your chest loads. And actually, you want to start using a diaphragm and get those ribs moving, get your belly breathing going. Okay? So, what we're going to do through this session is I'm not going to just chat nonsense for an hour. I'm going to break it up with some GoPro and some other bits to make it a bit more interesting. So let's cut to some riding footage. And while we do that, let's build the heart rate up to your target heart rate and think about nasal breathing, level of effort, and just building up to where we want to be.
Get going. Whoa.
Stop.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
I got that gap off the video.
Yeah, that's natural.
You get off the
anyway,
witness.
isn't
Yeah, I
it?
got that. That was cool.
Yeah, it's just sort of there. That's fast out of the gate. I think I'm pretty happy I got the lines right there though.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll do it different.
Bit hot into that left-hander.
Yeah, at the end of the straight.
I was rattling off the sides on this bit.
Oh, we didn't get our photo. Oh,
Sorry.
Can you look
how about
past
this?
the slope? That's the one. Yeah, put the race face on, man.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's one real greasy bit though, wasn't there?
Ready?
Should we pause or do you want to rest a minute or?
No, let's go.
Cool. Thank you. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that little break. Gets you dreaming of riding, gets you out of your garage or wherever you're currently doing this, okay? But as you can see, we're a few more minutes in. I've ditched the jumper and I'm nice and comfortable. If I was on my own, I'd be a bit shorts only, but I don't want to get cancelled off of YouTube for looking like a sex pest. Give us a notice, check this out. Odyssey Activewear, my riding kit sponsor. So nice, super comfy jersey, happy days. So, you should by now be up and about your target heart rate, okay? Because we're in more than 10 minutes now, okay? So, at this point it's about settling in and getting that, just keeping that rhythm. Because what we want for the period of the training session is just that constant output. This is the benefit of doing it indoors, is this controlled environment means you can be constant, whereas when we're outside, you've got uphills, downhill coasting, you know, unless you live in Holland or somewhere where you can just do 4 or 5 hours flat zone 2, you know, indoors gives us that opportunity for a very controlled workout, which is what we want. So ideally, until I finish at the end, these legs are not going to stop moving, okay? Hopefully, neither will yours. So, let's talk about how we can get the maximum benefit from this training session. And we're going to start with hydration. And one of the, I guess, drawbacks, if you like, of aerobic training, of indoor training, is even with fans and all that sort of thing, is the fluid loss, sweat loss, okay? some people, especially if you're a big sweater, can lose an awful lot of fluid, which means you've got to put a big effort into hydration. So, let's get a drink. Now I've just got water in there, which is absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you know that you're a really big sweater, or if you leave a lot of salty marks on your jerseys, on your t-shirt when you train, then you might need to add a hydration tab. But what I would do is make sure it's hydration only. What we don't really want in an aerobic session is to be having carbs and calories, and we'll talk about why in a minute, okay? Ideally, you just want to keep that hydration and really minimize calories or keep them to zero. So just a 0 calorie hydration tab, or just plain water. And it goes without saying, you need to make sure you're hydrated before you start. So if you're doing it first thing in the morning, as soon as you get up, let's get a big glass of water on, okay, and make sure you're not starting behind the curve. So you might be thinking, Ben's going too hard here, because I'm having to break up my sentences. And the fact is, if I was having a conversation, I would talk, then my friend would talk, and then I would be able to breathe in between. But because I'm just chatting away flat out to you, it does mean that it's leaving me a little short of breath, because I'm not being able to breathe in as much as I'd like. So we're just going to spin for a minute, nice and chill. Let's focus on the breathing. Okay, so we ticked off hydration. The other part of this is fueling, okay, which I already mentioned. Now, if you are new to training, maybe you're a bit out of shape or a bit overweight, or you're starting from a lower level, then I would focus on making sure you're properly fueled for the session. So, you know, you have your breakfast or lunch or dinner, and then do it an hour afterwards, okay, where you've got enough energy in your system, on board, at hand and ready to go, to focus on just doing the work and doing it really well. Because basically your body, although hopefully we're going to be primarily burning fat through this workout, when you're not very well trained and when you're starting off, it's just going to feel better. You're going to get better results if the fuel is readily to hand in your body, okay? Now, first thing in the morning, like first thing before breakfast, that can be tricky, in which case you need to really make sure you have a good dinner the previous night, including enough carbohydrates. So don't go having a low carb dinner, okay? Make sure there's some potatoes, sweet potato, pasta, rice, whatever, and all that good stuff in the meal. And then maybe in the morning, see if you can get like a banana down, or half a banana, or even just a few spoonfuls of water, a bowl of porridge, If you don't want to, then look, it's not the end of the world if you've had a good dinner the night before, because then during the session, ideally, you're not going to eat anything. You're not going to consume any calories from drinks, from gels, from bars, or anything like that. You should be able to do 40, 45, an hour without any additional calories. Okay, now, for those of you who are already got a bit of a base of fitness, you ride regularly, healthy weight, stuff like that, there is some benefit to doing this, not necessarily fasted, but less fed, if there is such a thing. Or basically, if you're doing it first thing in the morning, just have water beforehand, and you basically just don't need to put any specific effort into being fueled up for it. Because what we want to do is we want to stimulate your body to burn fat as a fuel. So the other thing we can do is, if you're going to be doing this sort of training after breakfast, is we can keep brekkie maybe a bit lower carb than you normally would, okay? So maybe you don't have your fruit with breakfast, or if you're having porridge or oatmeal, have a smaller bowl, or if you're having eggs on toast, maybe one bit of toast instead of two, okay? Just so we're going into the session with fewer carbs on board, so your body is more likely then to flip the switch at low intensities to burn fat as a fuel. And that's going to help you to be really efficient when you then go and ride your bike, when you've got a big day, or when you've got a race day. And the same goes for during the session, where we don't want any calories, any carbs, any fuel on board at all. And as you get fitter, you are going to be able to go a bit longer than an hour probably before you need any calories. And even then, you can keep it a bit lower calorie, lower carb, with things like maybe rice cakes and cereal bars, or something like that, where there's a bit of fat and protein too, rather than just going smash and banging a gel or an energy drink. Right, let's watch some GoPro. Enough waffling.
I don't want to get Rimpact. Well, it's dark, isn't it, with the sun? Whoa!
Yes, Joe. Nailed it. Yeah! Well, leave some run out space. Okay, I hope you enjoyed those clips. Before we go any further, let's just check in, do a little check-in on your intensity level. It's easy if you're distracted, you're watching a video or something, that you gradually kind of creep up or down in intensity. So double check your heart rate, all good. And let's have a think, do your legs burn? Yes? You're going too hard? No, they feel nice and warm, but good. That's probably about right. And then can you breathe through your nose? And if you weren't on your own, like a lunatic, if you were chatting now, would anyone be able to hear it? Okay, so let's have a little chat about what's actually happening when you do this aerobic training and why the aerobic adaptations take so much time to build, but then also conversely, they're very sticky, okay? So once you put the work in, you know, even if with a little bit of time off training or in between workouts, actually you maintain your aerobic fitness for a lot longer than you do your kind of high intensity capabilities like VO2 max and sprint, for instance. So when we do this low intensity work, we're really training the type 1 slow twitch muscle fibers, and a number of things is happening kind of at the cellular and at the muscle level, which are the adaptations that are going to make you fitter. So the first one is something called increased mitochondrial density. Okay, now the mitochondria, basically you can think of them as the little power plants inside your muscle. Okay, they're the little cells that effectively produce energy, and they oxidize the fat and carbs from your blood, turns it into energy so your muscles contract. Happy days. And obviously if these mitochondria are bigger and we've got more of them in a given cross section of muscle, then there's more potential to create energy. So let's just think about that. The first thing that's happening here is that we're actually building new structures in your body, okay? And I'll come back to that in a minute. The other thing that's happening is we're getting an increased what's called capillary density. And now your capillaries are blood vessels, okay? And so you've got arteries, veins, and it works its way all the way down to, think of capillaries like all these little strings, these strands, okay? Or a way I like to think of it is imagine a satellite image of like a river delta or something like that. Looking down, there's always crisscrossing bits, okay, going off into the muscle. And the more dense that is, then the more you can supply your muscle fibers with blood, basically. The more blood that goes there, the more oxygen, the more energy, and so on, and the more potential we've got. And so yet again, we are actually building new structures in your body as part of this aerobic training. And that is why this takes a bit of time, okay? Now, time I know is the biggest issue for loads and loads of people watching this. And so what I always say with this training is just do what you can and do your best. I don't want you to miss your fun group rides to go and do zone 2 work, you know, because your group ride will almost always be too hard to get these adaptations. But if you can find some time in the garage or on the road or even on the e-bike, then it's really worthwhile. But it's going to take a bit of time because we're physically building new structures. Now, as part of this process, especially if you paid attention on the fueling part earlier, if you're doing this low carb or without breakfast, then we're also training the body to more effectively rely on fat as a fuel. And the bigger your day out, the longer you go, the more that is going to play in your favour and help you to preserve your carbohydrates in your body and help you to prevent the dreaded bonk, okay, which is where your blood sugar drops too low and you start to feel pretty terrible, okay? And so if I'm, you know, doing this workout now and I hit an energy gel, my body's going to say, woo, carbs, let's go. And it's going to start pumping that in and using that as a fuel because it's just there. It's ready to go, it's easy. And fat burning is going to switch off, okay? So this is what's happening then, yeah? Increase mitochondrial density, capillary density, and then improving your ability to burn fat. There's some other bits going on, but that is the main story. And because we are physically building new structures in your body, it takes a bit of time. But then when you've got those structures, if you miss a week because you're ill or on holiday, they don't just suddenly disappear, okay? Now, and that's why, your aerobic fitness is stickier, as I call it. It sticks around for longer when it's untrained. Now, what happens when we do interval and high intensity training is that adaptations are made to the structures that we've just built, okay? And now hopefully, ding, the light bulb moment goes off and you realise that, oh, that's why this aerobic work is so valuable, because when I've made those adaptations, so I've made changes, physical changes in my body, I then add the intervals and the high intensity in, it then brings my fitness up, but how high that goes is reliant on how much adaptation I've made here aerobically. And that's why if you just go mad, like doing Zwift workouts or whatever, that are always gamified, they're always trying to get you to go harder, do that one more effort, which is great. Something's always better than nothing. But if you actually really want to be fitter and healthier, then doing this work means that you've got the structures in place to make better adaptations. So if you are going to suffer through an interval session, would you rather improve that much because you never do any aerobic work, or that much because you've got a great aerobic base? Okay, my fingers are not calibrated, but you know what I mean. So that's what the aerobic work is for. So the greater the aerobic base, you know, the wider the base of the pyramid, the more potential we have to build that pyramid of fitness with the high intensity work that we layer on top of it. So you can do this as I tend to, where we're just going to focus on hitting that aerobic work through the winter, which is your traditional winter-based training, and layer the intervals on in the spring afterwards. Or you can do it concurrently, which also really works for busy people who maybe struggle to get time for this sort of work. But I would suggest that even if you do struggle for time, at least setting aside 4 to 6 weeks to really just focus on this work, okay, and give yourself a break from that intensity, okay, and I promise you're going to feel the benefits and you're going to thank me later. Right, let's get some GoPro. if you're enjoying this aerobic training session, if you find it useful, then do yourself and do me a favour and get yourself subscribed to the channel, okay? These subscribers, they really help me to reach more people, to help more mountain bikers to be that little bit better, to be fitter, to be stronger, and just to enjoy riding more. So hit that subscribe button now. Thanks very much. Red. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Let's keep on top of that hydration. Okay, especially if you're a big sweater, let's keep on top of it. Intensity check, legs, breathing, talking, and or heart rate, okay? So I'm settling in there. Can I breathe through my nose? If I'm not talking to you. Legs feel good, even if they are a little tired from the gym yesterday, which is fine. You can do this a bit fatigued, no dramas, unlike intervals, which are a bit of a struggle to do properly and effectively when you're tired. Okay, so let's check in and make sure you're at the correct intensity, and we're just going to spin together for a couple of minutes, nice and relaxed. Right, let's talk about how you can monitor your progress. Okay, so like I said at the start, if you're on a trainer, I suggest you use manual resistance, not ergo mode. And then at the end of the training session, when I hit stop, I'm going to have some data, okay? How long I've done, my average power, and my average heart rate. And the name of the game is that for the same heart rate, because each session should be basically the same, give or take a couple, I want that power, that average power, to creep up. And just think of it as fuel efficiency. Just like on your car or van, you got your miles per gallon, yeah? And when you start this training, your miles per gallon is probably not great. You're chugging away, you're burning a lot of fuel, and you're having to work hard for those watts, okay? So, either using an app or something, you can use like a free copy of a free membership on Training Peaks. I don't have any collaboration with them, it's just a really good platform. Or through like the Watt Bike free app I can use with a bike, or Garmin Connect, or any of those things. Let's start monitoring your sessions, because that is super motivating, especially for the aerobic zone 2 skeptics out there who are like, it's too easy, it can't be doing any good. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, you know who you are. Well, actually, if you've watched this far, it's probably not you, but if it is, then well done for getting this far. Because then if you can see the improvements with hard data, then that's really valuable. And just remember as well, I'm a big fan of simple training. Okay, you don't need a 400 quid Garmin watch or computer or Sunto or any of that stuff, okay? I like it simple. You can do this in a notebook. You can get to the end of the session and write down, I did an hour, average heart rate 135, average power 190 watts, whatever. And then you can also record your body weight as well, okay, if that is something that varies. Now, and then guess what? After a few weeks, you're doing that session, now the average power for the same heart rate is nudging up closer to 200 watts, okay? And now you think, oh, this does work. Maybe Ben isn't just full of crap. Maybe I'm not wasting my time here. Maybe this easy training really is the key to being fit and fast on your bike. Okay, so a little reminder, I've said this before on a number of podcasts like Downtime, that the best cyclists in the world, mountain bike or road, whatever, like Pogacar, whatever, he's and Pidcock, they're doing 80-90% of their rides are aerobic zone 2 rides. Now look, their watts are crazy. Their zone 2 watts would have me maxing out. That's how fit they are. And they're 20 kilos lighter than me. But 80 or 90% of what they do is zone 2. And then that last 10-20% is super high intensity. It's disgusting work, okay? And that's how they become the fittest riders in the world. So why does a 45-year-old man who sits all day with a belly and a really busy to-do list and a crazy life, why does he think that the best way to get fit is just to smash yourself beast mode, okay, 3 times a week on bloody Zwift? It doesn't add up. I know the pro's got more time than you, you have less time. I understand that, okay, but let's just put it in perspective and make a better use of your time, okay? And you can still do some intensity, but let's just remember, the science on this is crystal clear. The results speak for themselves. The pro riders, the hundreds of riders that I've coached using these systems and seen the results and proven the results, okay? This training works if you do it right, if you're disciplined, okay? So, let's hit some GoPro.
Morning. Whoa.
All right then, so as we approach the end of the training session, a couple of things. Number one, let's just check in on that intensity level, check your heart rate. Let's go through that process again and make sure that we're all good and not going too hard. Okay, at this point, it's also interesting, if you've got this on your display, on your bike, have a look at your power, because especially for the less fit riders or when you first start this training, you're going to find that for your given heart rate, okay, your aerobic heart rate, that over time your power is going to drop off, okay, and it's called drift. So maybe at the start you're riding at 180 watts at your aerobic pace, but as you fatigue, okay, as you start to use your fuel stores, that power is going to drop down for the same heart rate. So you might be doing 3, 5, 8 watts less, okay, it's going to vary for everybody. If you're fit and well conditioned, then during an hour that should be minimal and it's basically going to be the same, okay. And again, this is one of the adaptations that you're going to make, is that your ability to maintain a power over a longer period of time is going to improve as you keep working on it. And this also ties in with what we talked about at the start and why we don't use that ergo mode, okay. So if I'd set this to a 180 watt training session for the whole thing, then maybe at the start I would have been aerobic to maintain that. But then by the end of the session now, my heart rate to maintain that is going to punch above that aerobic level, and I'm going to be going too hard and I'm going to be limiting the results I get from the session. So that's just another reminder why I would use manual resistance for your aerobic training sessions. So, as we get to the end, let's think about how much you've had to drink, because remember, fluid loss is a big factor with indoor training. You can really get dehydrated, and then if you're going training day to day, they can really catch up with you. So let's get on top of that. Nice and cold. And then let's talk about the end of the session. So, because we're not going super hard, there's no need for a cool down. You can just do your aerobic pace and just stop dead. You hit your hour, whatever you're aiming for, and then just stop. No worries, that's fine. Or if you're a bit older, or if it just feels good, then you can spend the last 5 minutes of the session just winding it down a little bit, bring your heart rate down gradually towards the end of the session, and it can also help control how hot and sweaty you are when you finish, okay, when you jump off the bike. So if you want to start winding it down now, then that's cool. It's really up to you. To get the maximum benefits from this session, what we want to do is focus on recovery. Now, these sessions are easy to recover from. Even if you do a longer session of a couple of hours, it's still relatively easy. You shouldn't be sore. You know, as long as you get enough calories, you should recover well to do some sort of training or exercise the next day. So, what's the basics of recovery? Number one, really good sleep. Okay, I've talked about it many times. There's loads of stuff out there. I'm not going to get into it now, but let's make sure you're sleeping well and you're getting enough sleep. And number two is nutrition. So we're making sure that you're getting enough calories in total to support your training load. And assuming that you're a healthy weight and you're not trying to drop any body fat or anything, if you're then adding extra training into your life, then you need to eat more. Okay, now your display here or your watch or any of that sort of tech is going to tell you how many calories it thinks you've burnt at the end of this session. Almost always, that is going to be a massive overestimation of how many calories you've actually burnt, okay? So just be sensible, let your hunger and appetite guide you, but let's just see about eating just a little bit more if you're adding this on top of your normal schedule and it's extra work, okay? The other thing to think about is getting adequate protein in for your muscles to recover, but also to give your body the building blocks it needs to actually build those structures that we talked about earlier in the session, okay? So what you want to do is aim for about 2 grams, and I say aim for 2 grams per kilo of body weight of protein every day, and that's healthy body weight. So if you are carrying a lot of extra body fat, then think about what your realistic ideal weight would be and work off of that, okay? You don't want to go off the higher number because that's going to be unachievable and loads of calories, okay? So if you aim for 2 grams, and if you fall a bit short, then you're still pretty good, okay? Don't worry too much about it. So sleep, enough calories, enough protein, and then finally, especially if you're more advanced or a bit fitter, then you can have a period after the training session where you are low carb, okay, rather than you know, going straight for the higher carb recovery drink. You know, if you're doing this in the morning and you really want to get, if you're endurance focused, maybe if your goals are more towards developing your all-day endurance, then you can have a lower carb breakfast and then carb up at lunch and dinner, okay? I don't suggest that a low carb diet is a good one for cycling and mountain biking, okay? But you can be low carb around these aerobic sessions if you are, you know, a more advanced rider with a good level of fitness. So there we go, we're creeping up to that hour. We're just going to keep the nasal breathing going, and I really hope this has helped you. I hope this has been enjoyable. I'll be really interested, this is the first one of these I've done. I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts basically, and feedback if this is useful, if you'd use it more than once, or after you've heard it once, are you a bit like, yeah, cheers Ben. That's, I don't want to hear any more of your waffle. And if you want me to do some interval sessions, let me know in the comments below. Cheers.